This is Jaxon Warnock, and I'm going to be telling you everything that your kids think about dating and marriage.
Let's get into that. Before we jump into today's show, I wanted to ask you to check out our website, brand new website, marriagebydesignpodcast.com. That's marriagebydesignpodcast.com. All of our episodes are available there on that website. Love to have you pop over there, follow us there, and check it out.
If you have a topic that you're wanting more information on or you have questions about, you can search on our website by topic, which is a really great feature.
That's right. And more than anything, guys, please share this with someone that would find it meaningful for them. Without any more delay, let's get to the show. Hey everybody, I'm Nathan Warnock, and joining me today is not Andrea Warnock, who generally is on this podcast with me. In fact, if you follow along with us, you know we're in the middle of a series talking about championing marriage. And while I hope that someday my guest today is championing marriage, currently he is not married. But Andrea kind of got sick earlier in the week, and then actually she had the blessing of being able to go on a trip with my mother-in-law, her mother, and I'm super blessed for her to be able to do that. So she's off doing that. So I thought, well, shoot, let's make the most of a weekend where she's away, and I'll sit Jaxon down in the chair. That's my guest today, Jaxon Warnock. As you heard in the open, he's Andrea and my eldest child. We're super proud of him and just so grateful to have him. He's an amazing oldest brother, and so I thought, man, I'll see if he'd be willing to jump on and kind of just, my goal for today is Jaxon is a fairly deep thinker about big things, and he's also someone that is super social. And so he has a lot of friends in a lot of different walks of life, and that's a blessing, and I hope he's as much a blessing to them as they are to him. But point is, he gets to hear a lot of people in a lot of different paths of life, and not unlike, if you're listening to this, and it really doesn't matter what age you are, surely you remember the junior high to high school age. Jackson's currently a freshman.
Yep.
When you start to realize there's an opposite gender from you and they're kind of intriguing. And, you know, Jackson's kind of a couple years into this. And so he's now at an age where he and Andrea and I are starting to have way more conversations about what do you think about marriage and about dating? And, you know, we're not going to get into any like necessarily specifics on like, you know, girls Jackson's liked or any, this isn't a tabloid about Jackson's life. But what I do want is to kind of get an idea from him on, man, what do you hear out there? Because, you know, a lot of you probably have kids maybe that are high school or junior high age kids, or if you don't, maybe you have kids that are younger and you're kind of just interested in, man, what does this look like? And so I thought, well, man, I'll just pepper him with a few questions and maybe a few questions about like what advice he would give for approaching your kids. You know, Andrea and I, and we just did an episode, maybe a month ago, maybe not even that long ago, about broaching the idea or the subject of sex with your kids. So go back and check that out. But less that with Jaxon today and more like, man, just how do we build bridges with our kids? You know, what he would recommend. And of course, this is coming from a 15-year-old. So, you know, take that for, you know, for what it's worth. If you have a 15-year-old, that might fit right into that kind of a playbook you need to add into your parenting. And if you don't, maybe you're just engaged or dating yourself or newly married, someday you may have a 15-year-old, and take it from me, you have a baby and then you blink and they look like this. Yep. And so enjoy them while you can. So Jaxon, to jump into this, I just want to kind of get an idea from you about, well, maybe give like general background about yourself. Like, what kind of things you're into, maybe just general, who is Jaxon
Yep.
for somebody who doesn't know you.
So I'm Jaxon Warnock, as he said. I'm his and Andrea's son. I'm 15 years old. I go to TCA, and I'm a freshman this year. A little bit about me: I really enjoy sports and playing stuff like that. My biggest sport right now is basketball, but I played baseball for a bunch of years. As he said, I'm very social, and I really enjoy spending time with friends. And honestly, I would say one of my favorite things to do with my friends is discuss topics along these lines. I have a handful of friends that are also deep thinkers like me, and so it's super fun to talk about subjects like this and pick their brain about it and learn new ideas and stuff like that.
Great. Yeah, that's great. So one thing we've talked about quite a bit on this podcast is the problem of what I would call the secularization of the idea of marriage. And so for people our generation, my generation, and even a little bit younger, the idea of marriage was something that was sort of rejected. We know in the baby boom generation, the divorce rate climbed precipitously. And now it's coming back down, which is good, but also that's partly masked by from the standpoint of there's a lot of people that are just not getting married. So you can't get divorced if you don't ever get married, but just living together doesn't actually make a marriage either. So the question just for you, and I kind of, just to give you guys an idea, I told Jaxon I'm interested in his own personal opinion, but then also for him to say like, that's my personal opinion, but here's what I tend to hear other people in my friend group or the groups of people I hang around talking about if it's different. So the first kind of question, Jaxon, I have for you is, what do you think about just marriage as a thing? Is that something you look forward to? Is it something you don't look forward to? And then what are you hearing generally out there? Maybe from, he mentioned the school he goes to, that's a private Christian school.
Yep.
So maybe do you hear something different from kids within your school versus kids from say the more secular, like public state schools or whatever?
Yeah, I would say for what I personally think about marriage is, personally I would say it's 50-50 for excitement and also anticipation partially.
Like anxiety?
Yeah,
Okay.
a little bit. Because, of course, marriage, it's fun. Like, you have a spouse that you spend that you're supposed to spend the rest of your life with, and you raise a family, and it's a super fun, like, God thing, obviously symbolization of the church and him. And I would say also partially, obviously, men and women are a lot different, so there's a lot of arguments.
That's very true.
Yes, things along those lines. So I would say a big part of marriage is conflict resolution, which I can struggle with at times. So.
Man, that's super. I mean, that's super mature of you to realize that. So the part of you that is anxious about it, is it that? Like, hey, I know there's going to be conflict, and that's not always something I'm very good at. Or is it more like, I don't know how I feel about just being just me and one girl for the rest of my life? Like, does that concern you, or do you think, that's kind of an exciting thing?
No, I would say it's pretty exciting. I think I'm probably most anxious for like the conflict resolution thing, because me personally has to always have the last word, which you obviously can't do that all the time, especially when you're wrong.
Oh yeah.
And I'd say that's a big thing for me, is admitting I'm wrong, and that is crucial to holding together a marriage. So.
Yeah, no, that's a really good, that's a good point. And I would say, and I mean, Jaxon lives in our home, and so Andrew and I, we've shared a number of times on the podcast that Andrew and I can get in like some heated conflicts at times, and we're all, some people are very conflict averse and just kind of want to get along. Andrew and I are not that way, and so when we, that's true, and maybe that's a nurture thing. I mean, that's probably a bad example on our part that has made its way into your life, but we don't always do a very good job of being humble with each other. And of course, Jackson and the rest of our kids get to see that. And there's plenty of times when we have to go back and apologize for being a bad example. And there's plenty of times when we probably should have gone back and apologized, and we don't. So I certainly can appreciate because the kids feel that tension. I mean, when Andrea and I are at odds with each other, everybody feels that anxiety. That's the right word for it. So, my suggestion to you as parents watching this would be, I mean, you just heard it from Jackson, like your shortcomings as a parent oftentimes do make their way into your kids' lives from an imprint standpoint. And that's not right. I mean, as Jackson really maturely pointed out, like, that's not okay that it's not okay for him to go, well, my mom and dad they don't always do conflict well. And so, it's just how it is. Right. I mean, he pointed out that, like, hey, this isn't right, and I need to grow in this area. And so be wary of that as a parent, and make sure you're having conversations with your kids, like, particularly as they get older, like, hey, here's some shortcomings of ours, and you need to be thinking about how you're gonna overcome that. And I appreciate that Jackson's giving some thought to that. So good. So what do other people saying about marriage other than you?
It's not one of the bigger topics.
I would imagine not at your age. Group. Sure.
But I would say a lot of my age right now is more not worried about the marriage part, more of the dating. Like,
sure, and we'll get into that here in a minute for sure.
The way that marriage is looked upon at my generation or whatever is, or even not even just my friend group, I would say just my generation, like, in general, is you find someone who you love, you get married, you maybe have children, and that's that. And you kind of just, that's how it is. And so I think that a lot of the reasons why divorces are happening or stuff like that is because the expectation is, look, you love each other till you don't, and then you find someone new.
Yeah. But would you say do you think, in what you're hearing as people think about marriage, do you think that belief is making its way into your generation, or do you think your generation is going, man, that's not okay? Like, we need to find someone, and I need to commit to that someone come hell or high water.
I'd say it completely depends on this individual's faith-wise, like where they are faith-wise. I would say my friend group personally, like the people I usually hang around with, is more of the Christian friend group. So sure. Yes, you commit your life to one person, you spend the rest of your life with them. I would say my non-Christian friends that I talk to, or people like that, it's more of, like, especially in this generation, it's you serve you do what you want. This is like, you do what you want. And so, of course, when they don't love this person anymore, and life gets hard, marriage gets hard, what they immediately think is, well, I'll just leave them and find someone new. Yeah. And I would say that comes from them being raised on, oh, sure, we'll just give you what you want. Like, take what you want when you want it. Life is short. And so I think once they say, well, I don't love this person anymore, I'll just find someone new.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, definitely we live in a massive self-help, self-therapy culture. I mean, more than any human culture ever. Our big thing right now in the West, meaning, Europe and America, but particularly in America, it's a very much, hey, you've got to take care of you, and your mental health and your wellness.
Yeah,
and of course, when you go down that road, I mean, you just mentioned it, there's a lot of really cool stuff about marriage. But if your primary concern is your own mental health,
it's not going to last long.
You should definitely not get married.
Yeah.
Because there's not going to be anyone in your life that's going to cause you more mental strife than your spouse if you do it correctly. And I don't mean that they're going to be mean to you. I mean, to be married is to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And so that means you got to do a whole bunch of stuff you don't want to do.
For sure.
And that just can be stressful for people because it's self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I appreciate you pointing that out. So let's transition then to something you mentioned, just a second ago, and I want to pick your thoughts on that.
Yep.
You guys are at the age where the primary thought, rightly, is not on getting married.
Yeah.
But it is on beginning to think about, and I'm trying to use every term because as I have definitely learned, as you and I've talked, and I know this from my growing up, everybody has different terminology for what we might universally think of as dating.
Yep.
Right? So, whether you're, going out with someone, whether you're boyfriend, girlfriend, whether you're talking to each other, right? Talking in quotes to each other, whatever the terminology is that the different generations are using, the idea is the same. And the idea, I guess for me, I'm trying to describe in a more emotional terms. You are dating, in my estimation, if there would be a understanding that you're not dating anymore if another girl or guy came into the picture. Meaning, Andrea and I are married. If another girl came into the picture, there would be an understanding that that's an affair.
Yeah.
Relationships are like that even at younger ages. Like tons of girls have guy friends where they're like, yeah, Jackson's great. Love him. Like, love to hang out with him. He's great. And if Jackson were to take a phone call from another girl, she wouldn't go, what are you talking about with her? Right? That's not dating.
No.
Right? Like, but what we might think of as dating are these exclusive relationships where there's an understanding that there's some level of commitment between the two people. Doesn't, obviously, at 13, 14, 15, 16, doesn't rise at that point to the level of committing your life to that person. Yep. But there is some exclusivity to that. And as you mentioned, you are right in the age, as are your peers, of starting to think about, well, what is this going to look like in my life? Mm-hmm. So for you, what does that look like? Maybe start with, because it's me, an old guy, and probably old guys and older girls watching this podcast primarily. So the first question any of us might have is, well, you can't actually go out together because you can't drive. So what's the point of dating? So for someone that is just asking that question of their kids generally, what's the point of, and again, when I say dating, what I'm talking about. So what's the purpose of doing that at, say, 7th grade to, let's say, sophomore year, and then we'll move past that in a minute.
I would say it depends on who's asking the question, who you're asking it to. If you're asking what's the purpose of this to a kid my age, I would say I'm not sure that that's really thought about, that there really is a purpose. It's more of just for fun and whatever. Just because, like, hey, I like this girl, she likes me, we're talking because we both like each other, we're in a relationship type thing. Yeah. And it's more of just for fun. And I would say it's minor, but it is partially beneficial to learn how to act in a relationship. Of course, it becomes more crucial as you get older, but I would say it is somewhat important to have a relationship somewhat like that, to learn, hey, this is how you act, this is how you don't act, and how to treat a person of the opposite sex that you care about.
Right. That's really good. I'd like to add a couple of things in from an adult perspective here. One is, a couple of years ago, we had a Christian adolescent psychologist that we listened to a talk from. His name's Dr. Ken Wilgus. He's written a couple books. They're great. But he came and spoke at Jaxon School, the parent body, and Andrew and I went and listened. And one of the questions that came up to him was a girl who at the time was in 8th grade. And they asked, like, well, her parents wrote a question and said, hey, our daughter likes this boy. He likes her. Like, how should we feel about that? And I found it really fascinating what he said, the first thing he said, I think as Christian parents, we all who grew up, and a lot of us in Christian homes, we all expected him to be like, oh, that's awfully young for that sort of thing. But that's not what he said. What he said is, and again, remember, he deals with adolescents all day long. Yep. Obviously, not just Christian, a lot of secular. And he said, the first thing I want to say to this parent who wrote this question is, congratulations on having a child that's interested in marriage.
Yeah.
And I found that really fascinating. But he said of the kids he meets with, the majority of them express zero desire to enter into a committed relationship, what we would call marriage.
Yeah.
Because they grew up in broken homes or breaking homes. They don't have a good view of marriage, and so they don't even want to think about that. Dating or anything. They do what we would call hooking up. And so I found that to be a really interesting thing. The other thing I would say, and I agree with what you said, I teach a debate class at his school, and I teach high schoolers, but I also teach 8th graders. And this last Friday, we did a debate over dating with the 8th graders. They picked the topic. And afterwards, we were having a conversation, and I asked them, like, well, why do this? Like, why do you guys enter into these sort of exclusive relationships? And a young lady raised her hand, and I appreciated the innocence of her answer. And she just said, because it feels really good to be wanted.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, what an insightful answer. Like, as parents, sometimes we can wrongly, I believe, jump down our kids, our junior high and high school kids' throats about, you're too young to be doing something like this. But what we're failing to do is to just say, hey, what is it about this that speaks to you, that's meaningful to you? And for her, and I know her family, and she has a good, solid home, but that didn't change the reality of, man, it feels good to have a guy say he likes me, meaning at the exclusion of every other girl.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that. Now, can that become a sin issue? Yeah, but I think it's wrong for us as parents to assume it will, instead of exploring that with our kids, and as Jaxon said, using it as an opportunity to help our, particularly I believe young men, but both, think about what does it mean to be a leader in a relationship, even if it's a non-driving around, going on dates, getting serious about life relationship. So now that you're a little older, how do you look at dating down the road? Like, what do you maybe start with? What's the thing that's the most exciting to you about being in dating relationships in the coming few years?
Yeah, I would say, partially to what you said, what that girl said in your class, being wanted, really made me think that's generally probably the main point of why, and I'd say that's probably one of the most exciting parts, is like meeting someone that wants you and you want back, and kind of like living life together as a couple or whatever, and just kind of learning how, like I said earlier, a relationship would work. Learning, obviously, like I said, how to act. And I would say it's important to learn from a young age where you're just talking or whatever, right? It's important to be able to learn how to act and how to behave in a big kid relationship where you're going out on dates and stuff like that. And kind of just committing to someone for a set amount of time, or maybe you get married. It doesn't matter. The point's still the same of committing your time to each other and learning what that is.
Yeah. So that's what you're looking forward to the most?
Yeah.
Is that what you'd say? Okay, so I want to share what I'm looking forward to the most. And then I want to say a comment on yours too for your benefit, and it's not going to surprise you, but it's a good reminder for you and for the benefit of our audience that's raising up their own kids. I love my kids. I love my kids' friends.
Yep.
I love having Jackson's buddies over. One of his buddies is coming over to stay with us tonight. And I love that. Like, the more my kids' friends can be around, the better, because I love to get to know them. I love to have an influence in their life. I have a heart for young men and young women, but Ryan's, Jackson's sister is a few years behind him, so I don't as much have a chance to be around her girlfriends as much as I do his guy friends, and I have a heart for seeing them succeed and be successful and thrive as young men of the Lord. So I love that. I do look forward to the opportunity to get to know, build a friendship, and hopefully love in a fatherly way the women that he chooses to enter into dating relationships with. not in a weird way, and maybe that sounds weird, but I just, for me, like, I like having influence and getting to know people and being able to encourage them and see the Lord work in their lives and see them grow and get into a better understanding of this whole life thing and what it means to be a human being. And so I get excited about that.
Yeah.
One thing you said, and this was what I told my 8th grade class when that young woman said what she said about wanting to be wanted. The problem is that we have to, in a maturing relationship and as a maturing young man and young woman, we have to recognize really quick that while it does feel good to be wanted, we have to be really careful about that emotion, because our relationships are not about us.
Yeah.
And so if, while that may be a thing that attracts you at first to a woman, or a woman to a man, is like, hey, I see that guy and he's really pursuing me, or I see that girl and she's really pursuing me, and that makes me feel good. We have to recognize really fast that has to transition from a I'm attracted to this to I'm committed to this, but the commitment isn't to this person wanting me. The commitment is to serving this person. And that's the preparation for marriage piece. Like, for me, the biggest difference between a puppy love relationship and a relationship that could result in marriage is the focus of the two people in that relationship. Is the focus on themselves, or is the focus on the other? And I've told all kinds of young dating couples, you should not get married because the focus is on yourselves. In the same way, there have been a number of couples. My brother and his wife have been married a number of years now, but we had a chance to do their premarital counseling, and I couldn't get them married fast enough because their focus was on, and continues to be, on each other. And so that's important. So then, what's the biggest thing that concerns you about? Concerns you, scares you, makes you anxious, whatever term you want to put on it, for dating in the coming years?
I would say, honestly, I'm a very social person, so interaction and stuff like that isn't too much of a struggle for me.
Okay.
I would say the hardest part is her. So, like, how she reacts to things. Like, I would say the biggest thing for me in a relationship is honesty. So, obviously, if there's something I did that obviously she doesn't like or whatever, being able to come to me and tell me that, and not letting that sit and resonate and stew and make emotions come up, and then not telling the other person, because you're just going to end up both hurting each other.
Sure.
And so I would say that's kind of the scariest part, is like it's something that I can't capitalize enough on a relationship. The best way to keep a relationship is, I would say, honesty. Just tell the other person what you're thinking. Even if you think it's going to hurt them, it won't hurt them nearly as much as it would if you just keep it back. And if that means, look, you have to break up with them, tell them, like, hey, I don't think this is working, then that's where it's going to go. That's just going to save you so much time and pain if you just let it sit and just continue it like a flat line. That's great. The one, as I hear you saying that, the one thing I would tell you, and I would tell husbands that are paying attention, or boyfriends or fiancés that are listening to this, make sure as men we're
asking for that feedback too.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing I think that pursues our girlfriends, fiancés, wives more than sitting down with them regularly and going, hey, what have I done in the last week or two that made you feel unloved? Because then there's sometimes, particularly with pretty assertive guys, which you are, and I am, sometimes our wives can go, well, I just don't, we're doing a lot of things. We got a lot of stuff going on. He really is, particularly if you date a woman or someday marry a woman who is a little more introverted than you are, a little quieter than you are, it would be easy for you to just kind of steamroll over her and not know it. So caring enough to sit down and grab her hand and look her in the eyes and say, hey, have I done anything lately that made you feel unloved? And making a habit of that, man, that will really help. And then if she holds it back and it blows up while you're dating, then you may have to sit down and say, hey, I've asked you for feedback and you're choosing to not give it to me. Why? And you're right. I mean, the end result of that may be, hey, if we can't communicate,
we just need to stop.
Then we should probably go different ways, because long term, I'm not going to be married to someone who won't communicate with me. Yeah. Especially when I'm trying to do right by inviting that communication.
For sure. Yeah.
So, that's a good call. Well, I'm going to use as the thing that concerns me the most, the elephant in every parent's dating room, which is getting concerned that when our kids start dating, boundaries go just completely out the window. Yeah. And this is where, and you and I have talked about this a lot, so we don't need to have this conversation on the podcast, or maybe we can have it someday down the road. But having boundaries in a relationship is important. And that's not just a dating relationship that proceeds on into marriage. In fact, Andrew and I should do a podcast on boundaries within marriage, because they are critical but very different than boundaries in dating. And so in dating, I have encouraged you, and I continue to encourage you, think about those non-negotiables in your relationships. And obviously you and I both probably in this exact moment are thinking about sexual boundaries, and those are critical. Yeah. But I'm not just talking about that. Yeah. Right? Like, I believe when we look in Genesis, we see, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife. Right? So there is a part of dating in the coming years where it should be you pursuing this woman that you're pursuing relationship with, and that should include pursuing some relationship. I believe should include pursuing some relationship with her family, pursuing some pursuing the things that interest her, instead of just dragging her into your life. For sure. And but also, and this is where the boundaries come in, I don't want you to just abandon all your guy friends because there's a girl in your life. And so setting up boundaries with that girl to say, like, hey, this is what this is going to look like. Like, I want you and I to grow in relationship. Once you can drive, obviously Mom and Andrew and I will have less control over when you come and go, or, whatever, which is good. We don't want that. Yeah. But you have to choose, like, okay, hey, I'm pursuing relationship with you, but that's not going to look like every night you and I are doing something. Yeah. Like, I need some time to, work on my own Fortnite skills without you. You need that. Or hang out with your buddies or whatever, right? Like, that's should be a part of any good relationship. Sure. Yeah. And so thinking about that is really important. And for you as parents out there, man, don't, particularly if your kids are young, if your kids are in the 6, 7, 8 range, now's the time to start making them realize, when you get older, I want to be a part of that growing up. Like, Jaxon was not 13 the first time Andrea and I went to him and said, man, someday you're going to have girls in your life, and we want to be a part of talking about that as a friend. Yeah. And offering you advice and telling you the things we did wrong. And when Jaxon was 13, he and I took a trip together, and I admitted a lot of my worst failings as a man, a lot of which were in this exact realm that we're talking about right now, in the hopes that he would grow from that. And so, man, if you're a parent, like dive in right now, and start talking and thinking about those things. So
Yeah.
we are already over time. So let's call it. But man, I really appreciate you being willing to come on the pod and talk a little bit about about your thoughts on dating. And look at Jaxon is just one, but I will tell you, as someone who does spend a lot of time as a teacher and as a father of 6 kids of a number of different ages, I'm around young people a lot, and his sentiments on this are definitely in line with what I hear going on out there, as well as what I read going on out there in articles about marriage and divorce and dating and all the rest. So don't sleep on the things that he's saying here. Take those into your consideration as a parent, and impart that wisdom onto your kids or the other young people that you have in your life. If you have questions or comments, you're welcome to send them to us, Marriage by Design podcast at gmail.com, and we will respond to all that we get. Until next time, Andrea will be back with us at that point. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.
Thanks so much for listening. We just wanted to say, if you have a comment, a question, something that you're struggling with, or need prayer, please reach out to us. You can get a hold of us by emailing marriagebydesignpodcast@gmail.com, or of course you can comment on any of our social media and we will get back to you. But if you have something private, feel free to email us. We're happy to personally respond to you.
That's right. And we do respond to every comment that we receive, either through our website, through YouTube, through our social medias, which leads me to feel free to pop over to our website, marriagebydesignpodcast.com. You can leave comments on any of our videos through that site. We would love to be able to connect with you, but please don't hesitate to reach out. Even if you just need prayer, you need someone to hear what you're going through, we're here for the Marriage by Design community, so feel free to reach out anytime. Until then, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you next time.